Because it's such a small group, I mean, I can give you like standard presentations. You'll love it, right? That whole thing. But is there anything, I can talk sales, I can talk business, I can talk marketing, I can talk about the speaking business, how to be a better communicator, how to be a better presenter. I mean, what's one thing you guys want to take out? Let's go around the room. One thing you like to take out, just say, Victor, if you can kind of talk about this.
I heard you say about AI yesterday.
Yep.
I was interested in knowing how to utilize that in the best way.
All right, cool.
Well, AI sure is a hot topic I'd love to learn about, but I also would love to, you are a master communicator.
Okay.
I marvel at your gift in that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you were coached and trained. Speakers are also born,
Right.
but you perfect it. And
Correct.
You've really developed it. I'd love to have tips
So,
from you on that.
Okay, we'll call them speaking tips. How's that?
Please.
Speaking tips. And if it's up here already, just say ditto, one of those. What do you got?
You touched on this in Atlanta, but how you rebranded yourself because of the pandemic and started diving into the videos.
I'll call it the pivot.
Yes, sir.
That's the where I lost 90% of my business. Pivot, quick. Yep.
Similar to that, but just how you conduct your own personal development. How do you continue to grow and get better?
Personal dev. Okay. This is good stuff.
Thank you for your humility in coming
Thank you.
and serving us today.
Thank you.
How to ratchet up and multiply business.
Okay, so how to scale your business, right?
Yeah.
Can we say scale business?
Sure.
This will be scale.
I would have done speaking, but someone else already
That's
did,
okay.
so.
That's a reminder for me.
I'm always speaking.
All right, cool. We'll go there. Jeremy?
So when something new enters the market, like AI, for example, everybody is creating all these fantasy dreams.
Right.
So zeroing in on the AI function, like what are some of the things that are going to stick?
The tangible stuff.
Yeah.
What's the faddish stuff is going to be pushed aside. So it's almost like we'll say AI. Now I'll say minus the fad. That'll remind me that because there's a lot of stuff that's just going to go away. There's going to be a bloodbath out there.
Sales, 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 and more sales.
You couldn't have been more clear, my friend. By the way, on the topic of sales, like what specifically?
Okay, so really training my team.
Okay.
Really
What do you guys sell?
insurance.
Like what type of instruments?
Pension for educators, teachers in Texas.
Okay, so that's your market, the education market.
Yes, sir.
Do you sell to the actual institution or the individuals?
Individuals.
Okay, gotcha.
But we got to
Gotcha.
get approval from the institution.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, I've sold into that, so I asked that question. I've sold into that market, man.
You know what I need today.
Oh, I know what you mean. I'll just put selling in the schools, right?
Okay, yes.
Because it's, because you're going to step on some toes there.
Yes, sir.
I know your business.
I'm not seeking speaking tips, but more how to create a name where I can get paid to speak.
Okay, so it's positioning. I'll say it's kind of like, can I just say brand? Even though it's very, by the way, brand to speak to my favorite symbol in the world.
Yes.
That one, all right? That's right. I tell people this and they kind of get offended. Do you know what I mean? I say I'm a capitalist. People are like, oh. They get offended. That's because they don't understand the real essence of capitalism. Do you realize this is the greatest economic system ever invented?
Yes.
What people don't understand is, let's define capitalism. If I deliver value into the market, isn't it right that I receive value in return? That's capitalism. If I help your business grow, is it okay if I take a little bit of that money, a little taste? I just want a little taste, right? That's value for value. What people confuse capitalism with is crony capitalism. And so crony capitalism is like when the government gets in bed with corporations and they start breaking rules. And they know, I remember in economics, I learned a phrase that was really powerful. It was called, the way you can measure capitalism is if it has externalities. An externality is if it impacts you in a negative way, that's not good capitalism. Does that make sense? So if I, for example, do something and I dump my waste in the back and throw it in the river, that's an externality, right? And so anytime it impacts other people, you do you. As long as it doesn't impact anybody else negatively, that's non-externality. So when I talk about capitalism, people always like pull back because God said what? Be fruitful. Well, who does he help? God helps those who?
Help themselves.
He understood capitalism. He said, if I provide value, like you provide church guidance, right? Safe to say? right? If that guidance helps people, is it okay to get something back in return? And it's not always what? That. It's always what? Sometimes it's a good feeling. It's just good things come our way. I believe in karma. I don't know what you want to call it, but I believe that there's an invisible hand. And I like to use the word invisible hand because to me it offends nobody. Because you can call that, I don't care whose hand you want to put on there. It's Allah, God, somebody, you pick it. The Bhagavad Gita, take your pick, right? So I like to look at capitalism from that point of view. If I do good, maybe good will come my way. I'm here for free. Why? As a capitalist, would I come here for free, right? Because I chose to. You said, what's the value, Victor? See, everybody thinks it's money. It's just, I wanted to help them out. And it worked out. I said, why not? I got a day. I would have been home, probably doing nothing, making pens. It's my hobby. That's all I've done. So why not do it? I literally had a discussion with my wife. Why are you going down there? You getting paid? I go, nope. He says, so why are you going down there? I don't know. Seems like a nice guy. Met him downtown, did the video. I said, he was kind enough to fly up to Atlanta to record me. Why not reciprocate and hook him up? I could have said no and just gone my way. But the feeling I got was that good feeling. That was my payment. So that's all I wanted. And the ability to hang out with you guys a little bit, why not? Why not? Why not? Yeah. All right, so let's see where we can begin. I want to begin with, I'll get to the AI part, but what I want to do is maybe the first part, let's focus on communication. And I want to talk, by the way, I'm going to knock down speaking. I'll definitely knock down the brand piece, right? So you know what I'll do is, I think I'm going to do this right here is going to be, I'll call this session 1, right? And then after the break, we'll do these 2 right here. And by the way, I realize that you're selling. By the way, I'm going to put that up here also. So the second half will be selling. Let's look at the first part is communication. Second part is selling. And I'll tell you how to brand, how to market, how to be monsters in the market, right? And grab attention. So by the way, so the background is very quickly. For those of you who don't know me, my family's originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Chicago. Mother said to go to school, get the education, get the JOB. So I have electrical engineering degree, an MBA, went into corporate America, started making money, got away from the food stamps. Life is good. 3.5 years into my job, I realized I don't like my job. Now, it took me 5 years to graduate. I was on a 5-year program. It was an engineering school. I struggled through that thing. When I say I crawled through the glass just to get that degree, I crawled through it. 5 years, 3 years, let's say, in my job, I don't like it. And I had a crisis. Because how much time did I just wait? Because I went for the engineering degree for one reason only, for the money. So at the end of those 3 years, I don't like what I'm doing. How much time did I lose?
At least 8.
9. More than 8.
No, you're missing it. So, Sri, come here for a second since you came in late. Why not? My man, Sri. My man, Sri. All right, Sri, we're gonna do a simple experiment here, okay? Because they're not understanding what I'm trying to communicate. Okay. By the way, I'm gonna do what I did for that. Okay, when I step here, it's me explaining what I'm doing to here, okay? So just stay there. All right. In my mind, I'm saying they don't get what I'm trying to get to them. I could tell them the answer. I could give them the answer, but I said, why don't I just give them a visual? Sri just walked in. Let me harass him. I'll get a little humor out of it. And then he'll be a little embarrassed, but we'll have some fun and we'll still be friends. Now I'm going to do the visual. All right. So this is how it works. So I want to show them something. So let's say you and I both started college together, right? What degree? Do you have a degree? What's your degree in?
Engineering.
Engineering? What type of engineering?
Mechanical.
Mechanical. You're one of them. And you did it because you loved it?
Yeah.
Lie to me. Just say lie to me. Just say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and I'm going to do it for the money. You're going to do it because you love it. That's your passion, right? All right. So now I'm going to take a step this way, and you're going to take a step that way. Take small steps because it's a small room.
Okay.
Each step is going to represent 1 year in our lives. Okay? Okay, so it's the first year. You're going that way. You go that way, one step. Take one step. Small steps. Just take a small step. Got it? That's 1 year, right? It's our first year, second year, third year. 4 years, right? Now, so let's say 4. We both have 4. Now, well, it took me 5, took him 5 too. 1 more. Okay, 5. Now, we both graduate, right? Now, 1 year into the deal, into my job, 2 years into my job, 3 years into my job. Yeah, I don't like it. How much time did I lose? There's something in business called an opportunity cost. Don't move straight. Because what happens is not only did I spend 8 years doing something I shouldn't have been doing, but I missed out on the opportunity to be this far ahead of my career if I focus on what I wanted to do. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That's good.
So that is opportunity cost. So the sooner you can, it's almost like if you're going down the road and you're going down the road, you keep driving and you know it's not the right road, but you keep driving and you think you've just lost a mile or two. No, you got to go back that mile back up just to get back to the other one, right? The sooner you can figure out your career, the sooner you can figure out what you want to do, the better, right? And so I decided to move into sales. Long story short, I moved into sales. Did exceptionally well at sales, had a mentor, his name was Jose Santana. The guy sounded like Ricardo Montalban, had the smoothest voice in the world, and people loved him, and I watched this guy. This guy had what kids call today the Riz. He had just pure charisma, right? And so that was my first introduction to sales and communication and how to treat people. Because the way he treated people was incredible. He would go out of his way to do things, and he did it for everybody. Secretary all the way to the CEO. The man just knew how to treat people. So what happened is, when you're doing what you want to do, somehow success has more of an exponential, right? And so what happened is, became account manager, director, VP of sales, president of sales and marketing for a $420 million company. Life is good. Life is very good. Then May 9th, 2001, 3:48 p.m., I decided to walk away from it all. At that time, just to put this in context, it's 2001, my base salary was $250,000. Average commission, $200,000-300,000. Stacked on top of that were stock options, and I walked away because I couldn't do it anymore. And I had something what I call a quiet discontent. You know how you're doing something, but you know you're just not on it? It's not your purpose. I don't want to do this. And every day you just force yourself, you drag yourself, right? And so I told my wife, I said, you know, I can't do this anymore. And this wasn't a one-time conversation. She had been hearing this for a few years now. And then I said, I'm ready to pull the trigger. Pulled the trigger, quit, had no plan B. I do not recommend this, by the way. But you know how sometimes you just gotta, if you don't do it, you're not gonna do it ever. And so I said, I'll figure it out. Because that's my philosophy is, I'll figure it out. One way or another, it's like a Rubik's Cube. You just figure it out. Flip, just turn, something happens. What began to happen was something interesting, that May 9th, 2001, I walked away. I'm here to tell you that from that day on, my life has changed in ways, we talked yesterday around the table, in ways I could never imagine. Scary at the beginning, but man, once you get there, and I learned a lot of lessons. Here I was with an engineering degree. So I should tell you this part of the story. So I quit, right? No plan. This is May. Start my speaking career in June. By the end of the year, I made a whopping speaking career, killed it. Made a whopping $17,000. That's 1-7. I'm like, I gotta get my game up here. I gotta figure this out. And you start panicking because your money starts getting what? Low. You start using that money. And so sure enough, the next year I had to figure it out. And I still didn't figure out. I think the second year I made like $56,000. But I'm getting there. But in my mind, I had burned the boats. You've heard the phrase, burn the boats. Yep. I'm not going back. I can't do that anymore. And so you're forced to what? Figure it out. When there is no plan B and you have no plan B, plan A has to work. So then I just started studying people that were doing it the right way. My virtual mentor was Zig Ziglar. Like, you talk about communication styles and stuff like that. Who was the one that brought up my communications? I learned that from watching Zig Ziglar. I joined Toastmasters in '96, something like that. If you want to see something funny, type in Victor Antonio, first Toastmaster speech on YouTube. It'll kill you. Wow. Thin, double-breasted, curly hair. It's funny. Horrible speaker. And people watch that video and they're motivated because they go, man, if you stunk that bad and you got this good, there's hope for me yet, right? Type of thing. But it was hard, just that whole ramp up. The biggest lesson I learned in the speaking business was there was a guy named Randy Gage. Now, Randy Gage is one of these speakers, speaks from the stage, sells from the stage, kills it, right? Just humbled by this guy's power. And so he was doing a workshop in Florida, in Miami. And I said, I'm going to go to this workshop, pay my money, and during lunch, full-day workshop, I'll make sure I sit next to him so I can get all the insight, right? And so sure enough, sat next to him after my lunch. And so I started whining. Do you know what I mean? I break out my violin. How things are not going well. We've all done that, right? Not going well, right? That whole thing. And Randy's listening patiently. And then he interrupts me. Just kind of, somebody comes play, he just finally interrupts me. Victor. I said, what? He said, let me ask you a question. To which I said, what? He said, what business are you in? I said, trading. He said, no. Just like that. Not nice, just no. So what business? He asked me again, what business are you in? I said, speaking business. No. Can I do workshops? No. And I'm like, again, Chicago, Puerto Rican, just about, just want to hit the guy because that's that part, that amygdala that is alarming, right? And then finally I got frustrated because I got 4 no's. And I said, whatever I said finally, he said, no. I said, okay, well, you tell me. You tell me what business I'm in, because apparently I don't know, right?
Yeah.
He looked at me, didn't flinch. He said, you're in the marketing business first, everything else second. And when you hear something, you don't want to hear it because you're like, screw you. You know what I mean? I was like, that's my meal. I was like, screw you. But when you hear the truth, it starts working on your brain like a hobgoblin of the mind. It just starts burrowing. And I go, he understands. I got to learn how to market. You could be the best speaker in the world. You could have the best program in the world, the best tools. It doesn't matter. You can have the best message in the world. It doesn't matter. If nobody knows you exist, it doesn't matter.
Wow.
You're only going to be like right there amongst your own. And that was around the time I read Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It. And in that book, he was talking about video. Around that time, Google bought YouTube. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember Sun Tzu, Art of War. Attack your enemy where they're weakest. So there are a bunch of sales trainers in the market, but I realized all this is telling me they don't have a lot of videos. They're all got articles in these magazines, whatever they got all that, but they don't have videos. I pushed my chips all in on video. And that's all I did. I had a cadence of 3 videos a week, just cranking videos a week. I think on YouTube alone, we have like 1,700 videos. Just on YouTube alone. My academy has over 600. If I add my podcast, add another 500 on top of that. So I'm creating content because I'm what? Trying to get the message out, right? The reason I did the thing with Aaron was, I'm like, I even told you, marketing. He's going to put the video out somewhere. Somebody's going to see this face and goes, who is he, right? Marketing, right? Because I still hear Randy Gage's voice in my head. What's funny is I interviewed him in my podcast about a year ago. And I told him the story. He didn't remember. I said, yeah, you were kind of rude. But that was his style. Biggest lesson I've learned is if you don't know how to market, it doesn't matter. Talking to your friends and family, telling them what you do, ain't going to cut it. If you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not creating content, nobody knows you exist. And people keep asking me, Victor, how do you get to this level? How do you get to this level? What do I say? That's it, marketing. And then I tell them to do videos. They're like, yeah, but I'm not. Immediately that voice kicks in. I'm not good at that. I don't like the way I look. Nobody likes the way they look. Nobody likes the way they sound. My most popular video on YouTube today is one that it's called Sales Excellence. And it was a rant. I was irritated. I just got off the phone talking to somebody and they irritated me. I went into my studio at home, turned on the lights, hit the camera, and I ranted, right? Didn't drop any curse words. I just ranted, right? And I remember I had this thing on my hard drive easily for a few months. And one day I had no content to post that day. And I was like, all right, I'll just put this one up. And I remember I put it up like late at night. So not many people would see it, but I would be able to say, I did load something up that day, right? You ever do that to yourself, kind of play those mind games? That video today has almost 2 million views. It's my most watched video and most liked video. Why? Because what we think is gold, people think it's junk. And what I think is junk, people think it's gold.
Wow.
And I learned that we auto-censor ourselves when we create content. We've all done it. You write an article, you go, I don't know about that article. It doesn't sound good. And what do? You delete it. You start, editing yourself down. What I've learned, by the way, just a tip, when I write an article down, I used to delete stuff or just start editing too much. I've learned, write it, and you tell your brain says, I don't really like that article. And I literally say to my brain, I know. Why don't we look at it in a week? I literally have these conversations with myself. And then I put it away. That's me telling myself, put it away for a week. And almost every time I come back, it's not that bad, right? And so I've learned to put content out. I've had people say, Victor, your content sucks. I've had people, I don't like your video. I understand. To which I say, let me see your video. To which they say, I don't have one. To which I say, well, let me know when you do. Then you'll be in a position to judge my content. I mean, literally. You know, so I did this presentation. I talked about this yesterday for those who were there. I did this National Speakers Association. Got 95% approval rating. 5% of people didn't like me. That's okay though. I think I'm winning. Because I'm trying to, you know, if I thought I'd get 20% that didn't like me, but 5, I'm like, well, I'm doing good, right? There's always people who are going to what? I only take advice from people who are doing better than me. Does that make sense? Because I only take advice from people, because I listen to advice. I should say this, I hear the advice, but I don't always listen to it. People want to give me their comments, I'll listen to, you know, I'll hear you, but I'll determine whether to listen or not. And I tell you that because right now you guys want to do certain things. You want to execute on certain things, and you're probably pumping your brakes on a lot of things. Like, look, give an example. Did you ever wake up like at 3 in the morning and you have like this fantastic idea? You're like this killer idea. You're like, it's a killer idea, right? And then you're tossing and turning in bed because it's a killer idea, right? Right? And you're like tossing and turning. Finally, your significant other kicks you out of bed because he's trying to sleep, right? Like, get out of bed. And so you're walking around the house going, so you start thinking about this idea. Have you ever had that 3 a.m.? You started walking around, can't sleep, right? By 5 o'clock, this is the best idea. You are convinced this is the best idea you've ever had. By 7 o'clock, guess what? That idea has been executed in your brain and you've made your first $1 million. You're like, well, I'm a millionaire, right? By 7 a.m., that's it. You're retired where? Up here. That's how good the idea is. You're so excited, you're so fired up that you can't wait to share this idea with somebody. So you wait for a family member, a friend, or a colleague, if you go to work, to tell them this idea. So what happens? You tell them the idea, and then you go, look, I had this idea last night. And you start describing the idea, right? And then you end the idea with, what do you think, right? And at that moment, the dream killer has shown up. But here's what I've learned about dream killers. They won't stab your idea, twist the knife, and kill it right there. No, 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 no. They work in a very subtle way. They'll say something like, I mean, it sounds like a good idea. And you're like, well, that's not the response I was waiting for, right? So you explain it again. No, you're not getting me. You're not getting me. Look, and then you start going, you start getting more, handsy, more visual. And you say, can you see it now? And they say something like this. Well, I mean, I just never seen anybody do it that way. And at that very moment, you know that your idea is on life support. So you got to what? You got to bring it. So you bring out everything. You break out the charts. You break out the PowerPoint. You go into that Jerry Maguire moment. You write your manifesto. You write it all. You slam it on the table. You say, can you now see it? Dream killer. Final statement. Shoves the knife in to twist and kill your idea. Says something like this to you. I mean, if you want to do it, go ahead. And you walk away from that conversation lacking the confidence. And what do? You don't execute. You don't execute. And then a year later, what happens? Somebody else comes with your idea. And you're like, well, that was my idea, right? What was the difference between you and that other person?
Action.
Action? No. The difference was they didn't listen to stupid people, right? Because that's our problem. We listen to the wrong people. Now, you probably say, well, Victor, calling people stupid is kind of rude. There's 3 types of people whose advice you should never take. I'll go ahead and categorize them 3 DEFCON levels for you. DEFCON level number 1, never listen to people who don't know. They don't know. Why do we ask people who don't know for advice? That's level 1. Then there's people who don't know and know they don't know. Have you met them? They pretend to know, right? And that's the 3rd level. There's people who pretend to know what they don't know. And what do? We take advice from people who have never done anything. Like, why would you ask your family members who are broke for advice? Why would you ask a broke friend for advice? We ask the wrong people, and then we take that, their lack of response, their lack of reaction to what we're offering as valid data for not executing on a plan. And then we walk away. We don't do anything, right? It's like those get-rich-quick schemes. You know what's damaging about that? Is that you sell me a $1,000 plan. I buy it. I execute on it. What happens typically? Doesn't work. I go back. I said, look, I did everything you said I should do. Blueprint. You say to me, well, there was a couple of other things I should have mentioned. Yeah, there's always a couple of things you should have mentioned, right? Because here's what's interesting about plans. What worked for you, most plans are not duplicatable. Have you ever thought about this? Most plans, most paths to success are not duplicatable. Give an example. If Oprah Winfrey, very successful, right, were to start today as an anchor, right, a host, she probably wouldn't make it. Because back in the day, there wasn't that much competition. Zig Ziglar, as great as Zig Ziglar is, if he was in today's market, wouldn't make it. Not to the level because you couldn't duplicate it. Times have changed. So when people tell me about their successes, I always look for the inflection point. This is always interesting. Just do this. Next time somebody's telling you a success story, almost like play Sherlock Holmes for a second and say, what's the inflection point? And this is what you're looking for. Something happened, an event, a black swan. A black swan is an unpredictable event, right? Not duplicatable and unpredictable. And I always look for the black swan. And I always find a black swan on why they became successful. And it's really fascinating. And I tell you this because do it as an exercise. Next time you're talking to somebody, they say, I make this much money. And they're giving you all this plan, and you say, well, tell me what you did. Tell me how you did it. I start talking to Sri. He does software. I dig. And it turns out he had a brother who had a contact at a large manufacturing firm who gave him his first big contract. Totally making it up, right? Right? And that contract represents 40% of his revenue. And then he built off of that, right? Now the black swan is that connection that got him the contract, came back, not duplicatable, right? So I say this with caution. Be very wary when you hear success stories. The next time somebody tells you how they've done it, find the black swan. Because the black swan is the weakness in their actual plan. And if you cannot duplicate the black swan or replicate it in some other way, it's not going to work. That path is closed to you. Any questions on that? Because I think it's a heavy statement when you think about it.
I know. I do the dissection and find there is a black swan.
Yep.
There's that gray area. But how much it impacts you in your resistance. So for example, there is a possibility that black swan that worked for them could also work for
Sure.
them. But for me to get there, they may have gotten there in one step. Maybe I have to take 3-4 steps.
That's correct.
To get there.
That's correct.
So, but in between those 3-4 steps that I have to take to get there,
Right.
The encouragement, discouragement,
Yeah.
hurdles, all the
Right.
other things. That's the part I like to know more about.
It's like how do you push through?
Yes.
When I hear about motivation, it's like people always ask me, how do you stay motivated?
Yeah.
We talked about burning the bridge. You can't do that anymore. So we made that decision.
Yeah.
Now we're going this way. Now we're facing challenges in front of us. We know we're not going back. Done. Got that. We're going this way. The pull of that goal has to be so strong as to pull you through any obstacle. That's the only way I can describe it to people. I knew I wanted to be a speaker.
Yes.
And I was taking body shots. That didn't work. Wasted $5,000 on that. And my wife's looking at me and she goes, no, we're getting there. I don't know how, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
The pull has to be so strong
That's good.
that it just, that's it. And if it's not there, you haven't found it. That's the hard part to accept. If the pull is not there, because I can't tell you how many people I meet who say, Victor, I want to be a speaker just like you. Can you coach me? Can you mentor me? To which I always say, no. But I always say this, you tell me what you need to get there. What questions you have, I will help you. They always say, where do I start? All right. This happens all the time. If you're serious about being a speaker, I need you to do Toastmasters. It only costs $50 a quarter, something like that. I don't know what the price is. I need you to finish the 10 speeches they give you. Are you familiar with Toastmasters?
Yeah.
So they give you 10 speeches, right? And the 10 speeches, the first one's an icebreaker, the second one is on being earnest, the third one is on how to, and you develop 10 speeches. It takes you 6 months to 9 months to complete. And I always say, when you finish that, when you get your CTM, Come see me, I'll give you the next instructions.
Or lights, camera, action.
Or lights, camera, action. And guess what happens? What do you think happens? I've only had one guy in the last 10 years come back and said, I'm done. What next? I'm like,
Wow.
his name is Ovidio Velasquez, kid from Guatemala, the migrant story like you wouldn't believe. He just sent me last week his schedule for speaking. Killing it. He's gonna do about $300,000. He's only like 27, 28, young dude.
Nice.
No, he's gotta be older than that, 29. But I mean, young guy, he's killing the college market because I said, okay, because you're younger, nobody's gonna take you seriously in business, let's do the college market. And I gave him my manuals. Didn't charge him. Here are the manuals, go. Here's the instructions, follow that, let me know how you're doing. And he's been reporting to me, and then, like I said, he just sent me his schedule for September, monster schedule. October and September and October, monster. But other than that, he wouldn't do it. A lot of people don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
How do you say this to people? You got to put in the work.
Yeah.
I don't know why, it's like, people go, well, Victor, put in the work, right? I read a lot. I create a lot. It's a pain in the ass. I don't like doing it all the time. Sometimes I got to just really talk to my brain about doing things, because it doesn't want to do it. The brain likes to rationalize why I shouldn't do it. Rationalize. You ever break that word up apart? The ability to ration lies to ourselves. Because that's what we do. That's what we do. We ration lies to ourselves, right? Because what do we say? Well, now's not a good time. Well, it's too late in the evening to start that. Well, maybe next week. We ration these lies to ourselves to the point where we don't do it. Year goes by, what happens? You feel that discontent and you don't know why. Part of it is guilt because you should have done the work. Trust me, I fight with this all the time. You're not looking at perfection here. I just want you to know you are not looking at perfection. I fight, I fall, right? And I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. Come on, we got to get this done. But it's hard. But to answer the question, if there's not a big enough pull into the future, that will always stop you. Because, by the way, there's got to be a pull, but also some intelligence applied. Like, if you're going towards something, after a while you realize, that really isn't what I want. It's okay to make that decision to change your mind. And I think people get caught in this. It's okay to change your mind. I don't know why we think it's not okay to change our mind. If you go down and you realize, you go to the corner, you looked around the corner, you go, I don't like what's down that street. You go, I think I'm going to change my mind. It's okay. There are no rules here. There are no metrics. Sometimes I think we're damaged when we're kids, right? Well, it's all about ethics and commitment. Never give up, right? Well, no, there's a point where you should give up because it makes no sense to keep doing it, right? And so it's almost like in school, they program you, and then you spend the rest of your life deprogramming yourself, right? And that's why, here's my line. I made this one up because I think it's true. The toughest road to success is the road back to you. And you really got to kind of absorb that one. The toughest road to success is the road back to you. Here's what that means. There's something called mimesis. How many folks have heard the word mimesis? You should study mimesis. Mimesis is, how do you know what you want is what you really want? And not that you're seeing something that you saw somebody have it and now you want that. That's mimesis, right? And so you got to figure out, is it what you really want? Or is it something you think you want? Like some people like the outcome, they don't like the process.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants to be on stage speaking to 12,000 people. That's the vision I had in my head, but I also was willing to put into what? The work. And then when we had that 12,000, MGM Grand, Las Vegas, I had a moment. 12,000 people, and I'm like, oh, this is what I had in my head. It was that moment, right? But I enjoyed the process. It was painful at times, but I went through the process. But the pull was so great. The pull was so great, I kept going. So, did I answer the question? Cool. On branding, this answers part of the branding. So I picked something that's very specific. I read Robert Cialdini's book. Dr. Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence. So let me give you the steps and we'll talk about branding real quick. So I drop out, decide that I'm going to I started doing motivational speeches first and realized I wasn't feeling fulfilled. So I changed my mind. It's okay. And then I was doing the college market. I go, I don't like the college market. Again, learning. And then I said, let me go back to what I know, sales. And then I didn't know my angle of attack. And then, like I said, it was just, it's funny when you decide to do something, things begin to show up, right? It's like when you buy a car, then you start seeing everybody on the road with that car. It's not like everybody went last night to buy the car.
Yep.
They were always there, but it wasn't until you bought the car that you saw the car. It's the same thing. When you say, that's what I want to do, you begin to see things that help you get there. It's not magical. It's not divinity. It's just that they were always there. Your brain just wasn't activated to see them. And so as soon as I made that decision to do that, I was good. My problem was I wanted to do sales, but everybody was doing sales, how to sell. So I read Dr. Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, and it's all about behavioral science, neuroscience, behavioral economics, why people buy. And then I was like, that's the angle. I won't teach people how to sell. I'll teach people how people buy. Like that, they can sell more effectively. And I came up with the phrase, his book was Influence. I just put the word sales in front of it, sales influence. How do you use influence in sales? Imagine a banner, a pole with a banner. It said sales influence, finding the why and how people buy. That was my banner. I went into battle like that. And that's it. I'm going to be that speaker. And that's everything drove that. As soon as I made the decision to look at behavioral economics, what did I start seeing? Studies on behavioral economics, right? Different studies that were coming out. I found authors I never would have found, but I was looking for the content. So now I was finding the content. And then I said to myself, 10,000 hour rule, Malcolm Gladwell, put in the time, right? And just be so good. Steve Martin, be so good, ignore you. There it is. If you understand that principle, if you want to be a speaker, be so good they can't ignore you. So when the National Speakers Association calls me up, which I'm not a member of, I said to myself, Steve was right. Be so good they can't ignore you. An organization who I'm not a member of wants me to go speak for them. How cool is that, right? So that's what I would do. So once I did that, if I can give you the simple, so I said, okay, it's sales influence, finding the why and how people buy, boom. So then I just went on a cadence. Okay, content. We create video. From video, we create audios. We make a podcast. Then we got to write a couple of articles here and there. And that's it. And then 3 times per week. And by the way, I just asked myself, what problems are people having with sales? Someone says, let me think about, what do you say? I got the answer for you. Client says, can I get a discount? What do you say? And that's how I created my videos. That's all I do to create videos. I sit there and go, what problem are you struggling with? Right? So what would be your field if you were to be a speaker today?
Finance credit.
Finance credit. What questions? What's FICO? What's a FICO score? Does having multiple credit cards really impact my credit score? And I just write all this stuff down. Just topics, just write. Start out and just come up with 52. That's at least one a week. I bet you if you brainstorm hard enough, you'll come up with more than 50. So you just come up with, and by the way, you may think, go back to my video again, the one that's the most popular one. You may think, well, that's real basic, Victor. Everybody knows that. No, they don't. They don't. It's amazing. People go, oh my God, Victor, that was such a great idea. I'm like, really? That was like A, B, C. Yeah. Right? But to them, it was like novel because you explained it in such a way that they got it. That's it. You find your style of speaking that people go, I get it. The story I didn't tell you was, I was speaking, doing the motivational keynotes, and I remember I'm not making a lot of money. That was that $17,000 to $56,000 year moment, right? Not making a lot of money. I'm driving up this way. I think it was Valencia College. I don't know how far it is from here. Coming in from Miami, I'm driving up to Valencia College. True story. And I'm like, you know, you have in those moments where like little doubt starts to seep in. And then I remember, you remember the book by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? The ultimate model in that book, it's like a 30-year-old book now, was the circle of influence and the circle of concern. These are things you can't control. The circle of influence is the stuff that you can't control. Your job is to expand that as much as you can control. Focus on what you can control. So I'm driving. And the whole, I call it the donut. The donut kicks into my head, right? I said, well, I can't control what people are paying me. I can't control them booking me. I said, what can I control? And at that point, I said, well, I can control how much fun I have on stage. True story. Because I was doing the basic Toastmaster speech. Again, the programming was there. This is how you do in Toastmaster. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them. And then tell them what you just told them. Right? And so I just said, I'm driving to Valencia College and I'm like, screw it. I'm going to do it my way. which is just to have fun and enjoy myself. That I can control. That day I got a standing ovation. It's the weirdest thing. The next day I had to fly to Atlanta for Bell South, and I had that moment in the green room, which is really a room in the back. And I remember I had to come out. Now these are leaders, and I'm going, okay, do I do the standard? Do I do the crazy stuff I just did in Valencia? And I remember it was like the good devil, bad, angel, devil, angel, devil, angel. Don't do it, do it, don't do it, do it. You know? And the devil was saying, play it safe, play it safe. Angel's like, we know what's there. You might want to go forward on this one. So I went out and used my style. Didn't get a standing ovation, but they enjoyed it. And that's when I discovered my style. Toughest road to success is the road back to what?
Yes, sir.
To do it your way. Yeah, everybody has a style. Embrace your style. I can't tell you how much that, embrace your style. Just embrace it. You will attract people who love it and repel those who don't.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I've had people say, Victor, I don't like the way you speak. I get it. And I say, and? To which they have a blank look because I think they want me to get offended. I'm not offended. I mean, nobody gets 100%. So anyway, I tell you that story because once you pick that, you find your style, you deliver a lot of content because what is this? This is delivering value to the market, right? If you preach, your words will only go as far as that room. I mean, do you understand what YouTube is? Has anybody ever thought about this? If I came to you 30 years ago and said, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to give you your own television station. You're going to be able to broadcast all over the world. And I'm not going to charge you anything. In fact, on top of that, I'm going to pay you for creating content. Like, what? What? You're going to pay me for creating content? It's free? That's YouTube. It's global reach. I mean, you think about it. And so it's like a monster. So if you're not creating content, I think you're missing out. That's where you're missing out. If you had to execute on one thing to get your message out on finance, I mean, we're in a recession already. We just haven't admitted it to ourselves. And so what do you think people need help on? Literally, I'm not making this up. Yesterday, my niece texted me, I need help. She's never asked me for help. In fact, a lot of people in my family, even after doing my show, Life or Debt, I have a finance show on Spike for those who weren't at the conversation, still don't ask me for advice, and I know they're broke. So my niece ponied up basically the courage to text me, you know, what do I do? And the big question was on loan consolidation, right? Because they were trying to convince her loan consolidation, but something didn't feel right. And then my sister, her aunt says, you might want to call Victor, your uncle, he'll tell you. And so we had a discussion last night. We walked through it. And I said, no, you don't want to consolidate. Here's what you want to do. Now, if you're familiar with the snowball effect in credit cards, I said, here's how we're going to execute. And we worked out a 9 to 10 month plan for her to get out of debt. And I walked her through it and her anxiety level just went all the way down. She goes, I knew something was wrong. This makes sense to me. I can execute on this. Something simple as that. So I'm telling you right now, there's people struggling financially who need your help. I think you're being selfish if you're not putting content out. Why aren't you putting content out? What are you waiting for? Somebody's blessing? Go forward, prosper. There, go. Everybody finds you, well, I'm not ready yet. I don't have my website ready yet. Well, I got to blah, blah, blah. Just pull the trigger. Your first couple of videos, horrible. You see my first video? My first video is me holding a laptop with the webcam and writing on the board. That was my first video. But I kept saying, it'll get better. It'll get better. And I just kept executing on videos. I have friends who've never executed on video, always censor themselves, edit themselves so much that they don't put anything up. The thing is, if you truly believe you have value to offer and you haven't put it out there, and if you believe that is a gift, then you are robbing society from that gift. And by the way, now you can send people you know to your videos. Why don't you go to my video? I have this video. I can't tell you how many times I've said that to people, okay? So this is me pushing you forward. Either create content or shut up about it. I'm sorry, because I hear this all the time. Every year, people talk about what they want to do. Do you remember The Gong Show, for those who are old enough? Yeah. Remember The Gong Show? There was a guy, I forgot his name, but Chuck Barris would bring him out, and he had a trumpet. And he would do this. This was his whole skit. See if you remember. I'm going to play my trumpet,
What you gonna do?
I'm gonna play it now. Yeah, you gonna do it. I'm gonna play my trumpet. He's got his trumpet. I'm gonna play it now. His whole skit was he never played the damn trumpet, right? And he never played the trumpet. That was his whole skit. I'm gonna play my trumpet. I'm gonna play it now. You're like, well, play the trumpet. He's like, I'm gonna play this trumpet. Oh, I'm gonna play it now. He never plays it. That's why when people keep telling me what they want to do,
That's good.
I'm gonna play my trumpet. Yeah, I want to be a speaker. I'm gonna start speaking now. Well, go do it then. They keep doing it every year. So if you're in that, you don't have to confess to me. But if you've been doing that, you're robbing yourself. If you've been thinking about starting a business and you want to execute, I can't tell you, everybody sees Victor, the finished product. What you don't see is the trail of tears. The stuff that didn't work, the money I lost, right? That's what people don't see. But if you don't go through that, you never get here. It's just that simple, you know? And so if something's holding you back, no, there is nothing holding you back. You're holding you back. You ever think about that? Why? I mean, we got all the tools. Even as we're recording video, do you know to get this quality of video 20 years ago, you'd have to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Today, your iPhone is more powerful. Your computers were supercomputers 30 years ago. You got an editing suite called iMovie that comes free with the computer. That could have been a $10,000 product. We got all these tools and we're just like, well, I don't know how to start. Shut up. There's so many apps in the world. Anyway, enough of that. Whatever's in your head, get it done. Like if you're going after the school systems, I'm pumping videos out. I'm not talking about promotional video. Hey, come see us. Hey, here's how we help. Here's how we help. Here's how we serve. Here's how we help. 'Cause that's the same thing, isn't it? Are you really wanting to help people? Then put the content out. Somebody's going to watch it. Somebody will watch it, okay? So hopefully that answers the branding. What happened to me was I started putting videos out, and I believe in inbound marketing. It started generating traffic, and then started generating bookings. Because if you try to contact booking agents, they're not going to listen. Because guess what? Every month, 100, 200 speakers are contacting them, sending them books. Read my book, read my book. You talk to booking agents, the last thing they want is another book from another author.
Yep.
It's like the music industry. You got to fight for your space. If you want to be a speaker, and by the way, when I say fight for your space, here's what I mean. Don't view anybody else as competition. Just be better. And just be better. And that's what I started doing. So now, I think this year, 2023, top 10 sales speakers on Selling Power Magazine, which is the biggest selling magazine on selling, top 10, which is cool, right? I'm like number 8. I was offended, but I'll take it, right? But I'll take it. My point is that you start getting recognition, but got to be honest, even that, I'm like, that's nice, thank you. Because they're not paying my bills, the client.
Tell me the magazine again.
Selling Power Magazine. Author's name is, the editor's name is Gerhard Gerstratnet. German, good German. So anyway, I think I got this down. If you have any questions, let me know. Speaking tips. On speaking, the secret for me is I read a lot, right? And did you guys see I have a Remarkable pad. You guys should get a Remarkable pad. Yeah. It is a game changer. Yeah. It is, you know what it is?
She's got Remarkable too.
Buy it. You could write on it. It feels natural, by the way. It doesn't feel like a tab. Because I tried the iPads, they're too glassy.
Yeah,
no.
You get a film on the iPad, but the Remarkable is better. I have a Remarkable.
The Remarkable is a beast. A CEO of a company, he had one, and I was watching. I said, it looks pretty good. He said, you need to get one, Victor. I'm like, I don't know, I got an iPad. He goes, no, you need to get one. I was like, nah, I'll think about it, And he mailed me one. He gave it to me.
Whoa.
Yeah, he mailed it to me. He said, no, you need this. And I'm just telling you, it's a game changer because you can organize your notes better. You'll never want to write anything down on a pad again. Like paper, you'll never look at your paper pads after this. But the Remarkable actually syncs with your computer. You could do some crazy stuff on there also. It's just invest. I'm just telling you, I would never push a product unless I thought it was like 20x. Yeah, thank you very much. My man. Okay, so I don't know which one I have. It's awesome. Okay. But anyway, I don't want to be too much of a promotional machine for them, but it's a great tool. So let me get on speaking tips real quick, and then I'll hit the pivot point, right? So what happened, because that really gets into more video. Speaking. So I read a lot, right? So that's the first thing I do. And when I read for extraction. This is what most people don't. Everybody reads for pleasure. I read for extraction. That is, I buy a book. I don't read fiction. right? So I read fiction. I know what I want to read. So in other words, it's sales influence. What do I want to read? Stuff on behavioral economics, how people buy. I'm looking for that constantly. And I've had people say, yeah, but you might be busy. I don't care what I'm missing out on. I know what I'm looking for. I want my content, so I read for extraction. And I have a 100-page rule. The 100 pages, if the book does not satisfy me at 100 page, I get rid of it. I literally just delete it or give it to Goodwill. We usually give it to the library that's nearby, right? I just get rid of it. Because I what? Keep reading. Because here's what happens. You force yourself to finish something because that's what you've been taught. Finish your food, Johnny, right? Finish it. You got to finish what you start. No, you don't. If I got a book and it's junk, I'm not finishing it. I'm not going to finish what I start. That's what I mean about the deprogramming. Because that doesn't make sense, right? Why should I finish something that provides no value? Yeah. And so it allows me to cut through content faster. And so when I read for extraction. So the way I read is I'll read, and if it's a graph or a chart or a data point, what I do is I put it in my Remarkable, or if I got my computer with me, I open, if I'm reading a book and I know it's good, because by the way, a good book I go through twice. So I highlight the crap out of it. If it's a book that, it's a physical book, I'm the guy that writes in the margins. I abuse my books. They're no good after I'm done with them, because I start questioning, no, this is dumb. I really have a conversation with the author, which is the best way to read a book. Like, no, nah, right in the margins. And most people are like, I don't want to write. I'm like, no, write on the, dog ear means interesting. Folded half page means, oh, you got to come back to this. That's how I read them, okay? So just to let you know. So I use a Kindle Fire. Yellow means interesting. Red means, oh, that's good. Blue means study. Those are the 3 colors I use. And so I come up with my own code. And so then I go through the whole book. Then I open up a PowerPoint, right? Give it the name of the book, right? Whatever the name of the book is. And then I go, first one. Oh yeah, that one. Type it in, right? Slide 1. Next slide, slide. And what happens is, always going to happen, something triggers you, and I'm like, what's that book? Oh yeah, it's this book. Or you do a keyword search on your Mac, and it'll find it in the presentation for you. And so then I extract data. And so what I have, by the way, and if you want to see it, I'll show it to you. I have a spreadsheet, right? So now you know how I gather my information. That was the first, I just want to share how I gather information. So when I gather information, I go, that's good, that's good, that's good. And then I try to say, I don't know where I'm going to use it yet, but I'm just gathering. When I can tie it into a story, I have a spreadsheet. Again, if you want to see it, it's an Excel spreadsheet and it looks something like this. And what I do is I'll just give it a name. I give all my stories name, right? Like I'll call this one Drive, because I read Daniel Pink's book, Drive, right? And now, memory tool for me is, he says, there's only 3 things that motivate people. And I just write AMP. Autonomy, mastery, purpose, right? Now, this is good for, by the way, category, motivation. This is category. It could be leadership. It could be sales. It could be a combination thereof. I have about 130 of these. And so when I'm putting together a speech, I just go into my spreadsheet. I go, that story, that story, that story, that story, that story. Because I forget them. And then every time I have a new story, I add it and I just give it a name, right? So it's like, I got a squirrel story, right? Can give you that one off the bat, right? I got the Goldilocks story, and I got all these different stories, and I just kind of trigger me. So now before speech, like tomorrow, I'll go through my list and I go, that one, that one, that one, which is what I was doing last night. I was stitching things together really. And I go, what's the flow, right? So remember, Toastmasters taught us something, that typically when you do a Toastmaster speech, these are 5 to 7 minutes, right? They teach you to do 5 to 7. Remember, you can't go past 7 minutes. It's usually your speech has to be between 5 and 7. So this becomes a module. All these are modules. And so all I do is stitch modules together when I do a speech. And so I can do a speech without notes, because I just go, okay, that one, stitch it to that one, stitch it to that one, stitch it to that one. Does that help?
Yes.
That's how I build my speeches. And then once you have this database, because that's what it is, then let's say you're preaching, right? Going to a congregation, and you can't keep everything. there's something called, availability bias. It's what you hear recently that's in your brain, right? So this is a way of triggering your availability bias. Because what I do is before I speak, I go through all this a couple of days before, and all the stories are there, and I go, which one makes sense? Oh, this one, this one, this one. And that triggers me. That's powerful. By the way, each of these, what do I also create? A video. Yeah. Now people are going to say, well, Victor, you put these videos online? Yeah. Right? People say, but people are going to steal your information. Yeah. What's your point? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you got gold? I don't have gold. I have a good story. I don't have gold. Right? So I put it out there. Why? Because a couple people may copy it, and they have, but a lot of people have booked me and they've paid me. And so I'm okay with that. So as long as we detach ourselves from our content, the more stuff we put out. Yeah.
So I missed it. Where did these stories come from? Were these stories that you picked out of books, or these just things that you
So this was a book. This is, okay, so then, we'll have some fun right here, right? Then there's this one. I call this one the Gotta Ask, right? And this one involves my wife. And this one is humor and also a sales lesson in there, right? And so here's the story. So one day, started dating my wife. We're driving from Wisconsin to Minnesota, right? I'm driving, right? And all of a sudden, she looks over and she says to me, are you hungry? And I remember looking over, I said, no, I'm not hungry. And I keep driving. Yeah, not good. See what I mean? Within a couple of minutes, I feel heat right here. And I look over, my eyes she's just staring at me like real evil. I go, what? And she says that one word you don't want to hear. I said, what's wrong? She goes, what?
It's fine.
Nothing. And I'm like, no, what's wrong? And for the next 2-3 hours, she doesn't say anything. So finally we pull over, we're going to something to eat. I said, why are you mad at me? She goes, well, I told you I was hungry. Yeah. To which I said, but I told you I wasn't. I asked you if you were hungry. I said, I told you I wasn't. And what did she say? But you didn't ask me. To which I said, well, why did you say something? Right? And then I joke about this. I said, because here's how a guy would have handled that. This is, by the way, this story is always a hit with the women in the audience. It's always a hit. Because I did not say something like this. Ladies, here's how guys would handle this situation. And I'll say, Jeremy's in the car. I'm driving. Jeremy looks at me, says, Victor, are you hungry? I said, no. Jeremy, being the guy, will say, I am, pull over, right? Because in life, you got to ask. If you don't say it, So that story was my wife. That was a true story, by the way. So then that became a story, and I call it the Gotta Ask story. And so you think about all these little stories you have in your head. Sometimes they're simple incidents, right? I went to Best Buy. It's the Best Buy story, right? Best Buy story. I went to buy, it's the drone story. Drone, this is a sales story. Long story short, without getting into it, finally I'm ready to buy a drone. I'm ready, break out the credit card, go over there. I'm looking at 3 different drones. I've nailed it down to 3. This guy comes over, he's like 6'7", 6'8". He says, can I help you? To which I said, yes. I'm nailing it down, pretty much want to decide. Now I'm telling him, I'm going to buy one. And I said, can you help me? What's the difference between these 3? And then he starts reading the little placards in the front. Right, I go, and I'm like, I read that. Yeah, I get that. But beyond that, what's the difference? He goes, And there was that awkward moment because he didn't know. So I asked him, I said, do you have a drone? He goes, no. Have you ever flown a drone? No. Well, did they train you on the drones? He goes, no. Awkward moment. I said something like, okay, well, let me just take a look at these and some more. And if I need you, a call. And he says this to me, literally, okay, well, I'll be right over here if you need me. Apparently, yeah, you couldn't help me, right? Yeah. And I walked out of that store, credit card still intact. I didn't make a buying decision. When I teach this as a sales story, I go, what clients are looking for is guidance. They're 95% into the buying cycle. They need you to push them over that 5%, that last mile. He didn't do that because he wasn't trained. Can you imagine? I'm one, Imagine this happening at least once in every store. Drop Best Buy, This is where we lose. We're afraid to give people recommendations, but studies have shown that that's what customers want. That's a sales story. So that's how you get them. And so I just start building. And it takes a while to build them. But I'm telling you right now, you build them, and after a while, you can just deliver them. And it's amazing how fluid you become. And people think you're very adept at speaking because you have all these stories. Just because I have a database of stories. So anyway, that's the speaking part on communication. Speaking tips. Okay, I think I can check that one off. Dang it. Sorry, I twisted it off. That's weird. I bought this one back from the Philippines. All right. Apparently they have screwed. This actually screws off. Isn't that wild? Have you ever seen that? Because usually it's filled up to here. Okay, different. Anyway, got that covered. Pivot. Okay, let's hit that one. So what happened when the pandemic hit, look at my timer, there it is. When the pandemic hit, so we didn't expect the pandemic, right, obviously. I remember March 2020, pandemic hits, and I'm like, that's not a good thing. I just done my first quarter run, and I usually have first quarter is usually magnificent for me. And so pandemic hits, and I'm like, this is not good. Within a month, I started receiving cancellations, contract, and it just didn't get any better. It did not get any better. So like anything else, I've always believed you got to do something. Motion creates emotion, or motion creates locomotion. You just got to do something, right? So I said, I'm gonna take my studio upstairs. It was really a room. Create a studio. And I remember I bought this digital board. I think I was one of the first ones who went online with a digital board from Vibe. Bought new cameras, microphone. I dumped about $10,000. Not a good time to be dumping $10,000, right? But I'm like, what else am I gonna do? And so I came up with this thing called Sales After Dark. Just Sales After Dark. 3 nights a week, I go live online, 15, 20 minutes of content, and then do Q&A from the audience. Didn't even know anybody was gonna show up. And so what I did was, it's a really cool tool. So here's the Vibe board I use. There are all kinds of electronic boards now. And then what's cool about it, and then here's my camera. And so I bought a switcher, Richard knows about this stuff, that can go between the board and the camera. And then I use a company called Restream. I'll give you some details here in case you want to do some. Restream, what's cool about Restream is that they distribute it to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, what's the gaming site? Twitch, thank you. And then now, obviously Twitter, right? And so that's what I did. This cost me, I think, like $49 a month. And so 3 nights a week, 9 p.m., I create Sales After Dark. For the first, 40, 50 episodes, we get 10 to 15 people. It's very discouraging because you're staying up late. To me, 9 o'clock, anything past 9 is late, right? Because I go to bed early. And sometimes only 5 people would show up. 10 people. I mean, sometimes I think the most I got at one time was like 100. I was like, okay, that's because it was the topic. What's interesting is I managed to get 2 contracts out of that. 2 very big contracts. One is still going on because they kept seeing me and they're like, hey, he's pretty good, virtually. And then not only did I get contracts to do training online, I would get calls from companies who say, hey, we want to do a virtual keynote. And my studio was well equipped where I can do switching of the boards and everything. It was really cool. It wasn't just me on a Zoom call staring at a camera or you looking up my nostrils, right? Yeah. It was very well done. And so doing this, not only did I get all my money back, I grew like almost 18% that year. Yeah, I lost it all, mostly, everything from the third quarter on, and then I got it back, plus 18%. And so that was the pivot. And so I'm always about pivot. What's new? How can I change? What can I do differently, right? The pivot right now is AI, right? And we'll talk about it in the second part. Yes, sir.
So with your restreams, were you selling when you restream, or was it just booking?
Free value, provide value.
Boom.
Yeah, provide value. Because you become known as that guy.
So there was no call to action there?
Okay. I didn't want to sell. I didn't want to sell. And so, but what happened is, I would start mentioning, I should mention this, over the years, I built something called the Sales Velocity Academy. These are courses you can buy online. So I would gently say, by the way, if you want more of this, you can check out my Sales Velocity Academy. We've got some additional courses there. But what I'm going to give you tonight should be good enough if you have this problem. And then people started buying. And the Sales Velocity Academy is still generating revenue for us every month. Yes, sir.
Is there a black swan in it?
This one? My black swan was the 2 big contracts I got. Okay? This is one of those.
That's like I said, I don't see one. That's why I'm asking.
This one, I don't think this one has a black swan because this one is, This one is if you're lucky. If somebody sees you, that's the only black swan. I got, the contract I got is with Orkin, the pest control company. The VP saw the presentation and says, I want to do something with you on this. Can we do something on a monthly basis? I'm like, yeah, right? That's the black swan. Somebody saw it. But that's almost like unintended consequence. I call that one, yeah. But this plan by itself, oh, it works for anybody. If you got a message, preaching, if I'm doing preaching, I'd be doing a restream every week. Easy. So I just launched now because I feel there's a recession. We're in a recession. So I just launched something called Sales After Noon, which is after 12 o'clock. So I'm gonna do it about 2 o'clock and 3 times a week. And so I hit it hard last week. This week, I'm taking off, but next week we start the cadence again. So hit the day program and then do the evening programs as well. I don't know if that's gonna give me anything, but it's better than doing nothing. Sitting home, waiting. Okay? So again, this is what I do to really just get out there, but that's all I did. And if you have a message, if you have content, by the way, where do I get most of my content?
Life. I'm just watching you.
Reading questions.
Reading.
Dude, I'm in a book. I've highlighted that segment, right? Like, let's expand on that, right? And that's my topic. One book probably gives me a good book gives me 10 to 15 ideas for a broadcast. And so what I do is, when I want to talk about something, so I read something, like, I don't know, pick a topic. What's on top of your mind right now? Is it a recession? What? Finance. We hit finance already. Give me something different. Something that's on your mind. Okay, give me something in sales that's on your mind.
Real estate.
Real estate. Okay, let's go with residual. So how to create residual income, right? And so I would say, look, so let's say the topic is residual, right? So then I said, what sales positions sell software that provides residuals? And then I would find 2 or 3 examples, and that's what I would talk about.
That's the whole session.
That's the whole session. It's 15 minutes. That's all they want. Hey, this is Victor Antonio. Welcome to another Sales Influence. Today we're going to talk about residual sales. Everybody loves residual sales, secondary income, so you don't have to worry about the primary all the time. Now, there's 2 or 3 companies that I've found that do this. Now, if you don't know what SaaS is, software as a service, let me explain what that means. And once you sell it, you get a monthly contract or do an annualized return revenue model. What are the differences? Oh, here are the difference. Dude, that one's done already. So what I do is I get an index card or my Remarkable, and I write the topic. What's my angle? Hey, if you wanted to generate this, then I say, here are 2 or 3 companies that do it. And I explain what a residual is, what ARR is, right? Right? What an SDR is, what a SaaS is. And then, again, you may know it, but he may not know it. He go, I don't know what that is, right?
Common knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not common.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's how I create the video. Everybody wants to overthink it. I can't tell you how many, by the way, true story. You'll love this story. I forget one night that it's like Thursday and I got to go out Sales After Dark. I am literally in bed. My friend Chris goes, hey, aren't you doing anything tonight? I said, no, it's tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, I'm literally in my skivvies, right? I said, oh. And so I remember I jumped out of bed. My wife's like, what? Sales After Dark, I got to go do this thing. And I remember putting my pants on, putting my shirt, running in the studio, turning everything on. It took me about 10 minutes. And as I'm turning stuff up, I'm going, what are we going to talk about? And I picked something, and then boom, I hit it. I said, hey, this is Victor Antonio. My friend was cracking up because he's the only one that knew. He just got me out of bed, right? Anyway, so there's so many things you can talk about. But again, by the way, this is also, everybody wants to be a subject matter expert or should aim to be that, right? Something that you're good at. Here's what's interesting about going live with video. There's no hiding, just like we were talking earlier. Small group, there's no hiding. What I love about going online is that sometimes we think we know something and it sounds good in our head, but it isn't until you have to explain it. Well, yeah, whether you really know it or not. What this did for me, go back to the 10,000 hour rule, because it's all about getting in the reps, right? This gave me reps. 3 times a week I was doing reps on how to actually answer questions. But by the way, I do 15, 20 minutes, and then people would ask me live questions, and I have to answer them. And now they're challenging you. What about this? What about this? And you just get better. Like remember that 1% rule? And the 1% rule, I'll tie this into that. You've read the book Atomic Habits? See? Now, did you pull any models out of Atomic Habits?
Not that I could.
Right. Right. So this is what I did, right? And I tell you this because then you're going to go back and go, oh, that's what he did. There are two things I pulled out of that book, and I love this. One was these are results over time. And most people think if you put in a little bit of time, you'll get a little bit of results. You put in more time, you get results. And they believe life works like that. What happens is you put in time and you see nothing. It just rumbles here. And then finally there's this exponential. And what James Clear called it was the zone of disappointment. And the zone of disappointment, this is where everybody gives up. Because it's beyond here is when you see the real results. And everybody gets up. What I didn't tell you about Sales After Dark is I committed to 100 episodes. Like, bam, I'm doing 100 episodes. And I'm at 40, I'm like, why did I commit to 100 episodes? This is too much, right? So, but I had 100. That was the pull. I committed to that number. I'm gonna finish that number. On the 100th episode, you'll see it, because I wore a tuxedo and I popped some bubbly on that episode, right? Just have fun with it. The second thing I pulled out of, and we'll end on this one for this break, for this first break, is the 1% rule. When he talked about improvement. In the book, and again, because I've programmed my brain to remember this, there's a story about Dave Brailsford. He's the guy that managed the London cycling team. And he came up with a concept called the aggregation of marginal gains. An interesting way of saying is, little things begin to add up, to aggregate, that you gain an advantage. And he had this graph that went like this. And it's really interesting that if you were to improve 1% every day, within 70 days, you'll be 2x better. Within 232 days, you're 10x better. Within a year, you're 37x better. But it begs the question, what does 1% really mean? Well, this part I had to make up. And there's 1,440 minutes in a day. 1% of that is 14.4. Let's just call that 15 minutes a day. Which means, you know what it means. If you put in your 15 every day on a specific subject, at the end of the year, you'll be 37x better. That's what I got from the book. And by the way, so those are two modules in my spreadsheet. So I call this one the aggregation of marginal gain in my spreadsheet. And I call this one the zone of disappointment in my spreadsheet, which is why I'm able to recall like the data and the stuff like that. Okay. All right.
Right there's an answer for everybody to watch your video that you're going to produce.
Yeah.
15-minute video.
Yeah, that's it.
Whatever it is you're helping them on.
Just help them out with 15 minutes. Every day you're doing something and you're on the topic, like even on finance, right? You do it on that topic, you're going to get good at it. You do it on education, what it is, how to use the software, how to get better, IT space, background. Here's where you're losing money. You could be doing videos. Here's what happens when you don't consolidate your databases. Here are how your efficiencies go down. Here are your error rates go down. Here's how portability works when you're moving the data over to from one database to another, blah, 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 stuff like that. And it's stuff like that that people don't know. And again, 20 years ago, somebody said, I'll give you a television show, broadcast all over the world. Not only is it free, I'm going to give you advertising money. You would take it, which means, why don't we do video? And by the way, if you sincerely don't like your mug, for whatever reason you have in mind, then do podcasts. So what I do in my podcast, and I'll end on this, is I interview people, but I got bored with that. I got to be honest, because it's like, sometimes I'm there for an hour and I don't get a lot of value. It's like reading a bad book. Past the first 10 minutes, I know if I got a good one or a bad one. So what I did was I created 5 to 7 minute modules of me saying, hey, this is Victor Antonio, Sales Influence Podcast. Today we're going to talk about fill in the blank. Now, here are 2 or 3 things you need to know if you're going to blah, blah, blah. Finish that. That's it for the Sales Influence Podcast. 5, 7 minutes, upload it. Microphone in front of me, do it quickly. There's no reason why you can't generate content and garner that visibility.